Hey, this is John Lee Dumas of EO Fire, and you're listening to the Junior Moneymakers Podcast with the amazing Mark Tilsher, bringing you inspiration for your young entrepreneur. And now prepare to ignite.
Welcome back to the Junior Moneymakers Podcast, the show that's all about helping you teach your kids to become young entrepreneurs. Well, welcome back, everyone. Today is going to be part 6 in the Starting Your Business series. But before I move on, I just want to say it is so cool that John Lee Dumas from EO Fire recorded that audio intro for my show. Every time I hear it, it makes me feel like a superstar, so thanks, John. All right, so last time on the show, we covered registering your business and concepts like limited liability corporations, sole proprietorships, and boring things like DBA or doing business as. Other things that I've covered on this series so far are how to protect your business name, researching your business idea, planning your startup, and earning startup costs. Originally, I thought that this was going to be a 10-part series, but looking at everything we've covered so far and what I want to talk about, I think that we're going to wrap this up at 8 episodes. So next week's entry in the series will probably be the last one. The main reason for that is that I've been going through another startup phase for our e-commerce business, and rather than give you one potentially boring episode on a few topics, I think I'm going to start doing an episode every single week where you follow along with my family's progress and possibly replicate some of our success at home. So today, we're going to be talking very briefly about business licenses and permits. This is by far my least favorite part of starting a business, and it's not because it's hard. I just literally hate anything that has to do with paperwork, government fees, or licenses. Now, because this episode is going to be like ripping a Band-Aid off for me, I think we should just jump right in and make it a quick one. Okay, this episode is not going to be too long because honestly, I think the amount of listeners that this applies to is probably very few. That being said, it is very important as it can easily get you in trouble with the law. Generally speaking, every business your kids will run requires a general business license, something I've covered in great deal myself on the show and with our CPA friend, Carol Top already. That being said, you don't want to make the mistake of thinking you can just go out and run any old business with that license. Now, for most of the businesses that your kids are going to be running, a simple business license will definitely suffice. In certain states like Delaware, even that might not be required, so you want to make sure you do your research. In fact, I'm going to address a few business ideas that have come up through email and explain some of the nuances here. But overall, I'm going to reference you to your local small business administration or chamber of commerce for more specific questions. But what I'm going to do on this show is give you a few examples of how business licenses and professional licenses or permits might trip you up. And I'm going to do that by talking about some business ideas that our listeners have had and advice and tips that I gave them when they were starting out. Hopefully, that'll be a great example for you, and it'll get you brainstorming ideas on how you might make this work. All right, the first business that comes to mind is this sweet shop business one of our favorite listeners, Zoe, is starting. Now, food is an extremely tricky issue, and laws and regulations vary from state to state. That being said, if you're thinking of getting into the food business, just know there are a million licenses and permits that you might need. You might need food handler permits, inspection permits, a food enterprise license, and on and on and on and on. Just thinking about that literally gives me nightmares, and that is more than enough to keep me and my family out of the catering game for life. Now, after talking with listener Zoe and doing just a little research, we found out that in her state, if you make non-potentially hazardous foods, then that state basically waives all of those permits and requirements. That means if Zoe sticks to foods that don't go bad when left out at room temperature, she can basically cook from home and go nuts. Unless, of course, her customers are allergic to nuts, in which case, never mind. Seriously, though, if you want more detail on that, go back and listen to episode number 40, where I explain it all away. The lesson there is that you can't take no for an answer. Take your dream, run it through the filter, adjust to your circumstances, and push forward. As your business scales up, you can always expand later. Now, another cool idea one of our listeners had was breeding ducklings for sale in their neighborhood. After talking with them, it sounded like a great idea and something that was going to work really well for them where they live. There was one major hurdle with this, though. Anytime you breed animals, the government is going to want to get involved. There are licenses, permits, inspections. It can get really, really crazy and expensive very fast. But, and this is a huge one, generally speaking, if you only have 5 or fewer mothers or females in your brood, then you're likely exempt from all of the licenses and permits that other larger breeders require. When I read that for the first time, I was absolutely stunned. So it wasn't a game changer or something that was going to stop our listener from starting up their business, but it could have. So just do the research. Hopefully, you started to see a pattern here. I'm not going to make this episode much more complicated because I want you to keep it simple. I am, however, going to give you 3 quick tips to help you stay out of trouble, and then we're going to wrap this one up. Okay, let's do those tips. Tip 1, research your business before you start it. The last thing you want to do is start breeding ducklings only to find out that there are $2,000 in permits and inspection fees. Then, if you're really unlucky, they may require you to make structural changes to your garage or habitat. That money adds up really quick and it can set a family back big time. Talk to your small business administration or chamber of commerce and figure out what your state or county requires before you jump in. Tip 2, stay away from businesses that require special licenses or permits. Virtually all businesses require the standard business license to operate, but make that enough. Don't try to be a beautician, firearms dealer, or nuclear power plant operator right out the gate. There are plenty of businesses that your kids can operate that don't need any special licenses. Stick to those. Tip 3, if you find out that your business requires a special license or permit, figure out how close you can get to that line without crossing it. Can you make non-hazardous food? Can you only have 5 egg-laying ducks? I'm a firm believer that there's almost always a way to get what you want if you're willing to do the research and the work. Honestly, at the end of the day, that is what separates successful entrepreneurs from everybody else. The bottom line is, I believe in you. If you want it, go after it and don't let anyone or anything stand in your way, especially something as simple as a business license or a permit. All right, that's going to wrap up part 6 of the Starting Your Business series. Drop me a line at mark@juniormoneymakers.com if this episode generated any questions for you. Now, at this point, you have almost all of the tools you need to get started with your business. But please, if you have any questions or I've left anything hanging out there, just email me and I'll make sure to get back to you right away. Next week, we're going to finish this series up by talking about the most exciting part of this business yet, accounting. Woo woo! I'm pretty excited. I hope you are too. Don't worry, I'm going to make that episode at least as quick and easy as this one was, so don't worry. Anyway, until next week, make sure you dream big and change the world. How does a penguin build his house? It glues them together.